So welcome everyone. We're here to hear the behind the scenes story of BNRC's trails. And just some quick housekeeping stuff. We are recording this, so it will be available afterwards. And if you want to enable live closed captioning, you can do that at the bottom of the Zoom window by clicking live transcript and then show subtitles. So thanks again for joining us. I'm Charlotte. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the Berkshire Natural Resources Council, and I'm joined tonight by Kathleen Smolinski, BNRC's Assistant Director of Fundraising, Tyler Fogg, Assistant Director of Stewardship, and Jonathan Lucan, our Trail Crew Leader. So just some background info for those who are unfamiliar. The Berkshire Natural Resources Council, or BNRC for short, is a regional land trust that actively works throughout Berkshire County on land conservation, land stewardship, and community engagement. BNRC's mission is to conserve and care for Berkshire lands, waters, and wildlife, and connect people with nature for a more vibrant, shared future. BNRC has conserved over 26,000 acres in the Berkshires, and we maintain over 60 miles of trail. So now just switching gears a little bit, I'd like to pause for a moment to acknowledge the deep and enduring connection of the Mohican people to this land, their ancestral homelands, which they stewarded for thousands of years before European settlers forcibly displaced them. They call themselves the Mahi-Kananuk, meaning the people of the waters that are never still. And for millennia, the Mohican people lived with and cared for what we now call the Berkshires and lands far beyond. Today, their federally recognized tribal nation is the Stockbridge-Munsee community, and they're located in Wisconsin. And the Berkshires remain culturally and spiritually significant to the Mohican people. And there are meaningful ways to learn about and engage with this history and contemporary life. So we'll share some resources in the follow-up email about how you can continue your learning. So now I'm going to pass it off to Kathleen to talk a bit about how you can support BNRC's work.
Hi, yes. Thank you everyone for joining. I see some names I recognize. It's good to see you. For those who don't know BNRC that well, we are a donor-funded organization. So the work that we do with land conservation, the work that you're going to hear about today with the trails and the trail crew, the work that we do to maintain our reserves and take care of our reserves, and the programming that we run, like this program today that's free. All of that happens because donors are very generous and they're giving their charity dollars to BNRC. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a link in the chat if anyone's interested in making a donation. But otherwise, we just want you to get outside and get on the trails. So get out there and get some fresh air and enjoy the webinar tonight.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. So now I'd like to introduce our primary speakers tonight. We have Tyler Fogg. As I said, Tyler is the Assistant Director of Stewardship at BNRC, and we have Jonathan Lucan, BNRC's Trail Crew Leader. So some background information about Tyler. Tyler grew up in west of Boston and discovered his love of being outdoors at an early age. He studied anthropology and geography at UMass and is a member of the Appalachian Trail Through Hiker class of 2010. His passion for preserving national parks and conserved lands comes from his experiences working on trail crews across the country. He has worked from the backcountry of the Trinity Alps of Northern California to historic building preservation in Virginia to the stone steps of Acadia National Park. And now we are lucky enough to have him at BNRC. And then some background about Jonathan. Jonathan was born in Concord, New Hampshire, and has had a passion for the outdoors and wildlife since he was a boy. Homeschooled through high school, he has taken a variety of courses in survival, disaster relief, agriculture, and emergency medicine. His work with BNRC started as part of the trail crew constructing the Mahana Cobble Trail in 2019 before becoming the trail crew leader. Barefoot running, birding, and hiking are some of his favorite ways to enjoy nature. So now we will hear from Tyler, and I'll pass it off to you.
Great. Thanks, Charlotte and Kathleen. What John and I are going to do is just kind of run through a slideshow that we put together at the end of, we've been doing at the end of our trail seasons, just to kind of recap the previous year's work. Pull out all the cool pictures that actually might show something. It's not just like a picture of of a rock or a picture of a tree. We got plenty of those, and they always look great when you're there taking a picture of it, and then you look at it later and you're like, I don't know. It's so we'll go through the slideshow and explain things. If people have questions, we can always revert to go back in the slides. There's only 15 of them, so we're not buried in tons of slides. I'll introduce each one and kind of talk a little bit about it, and then John can share some details and kind of what that experience has been like for the crew, because he's out there with everybody almost all the time. So yeah, we'll just get going here.
And sorry to interrupt, Tyler, but one thing I forgot to add is that the second half of tonight will be a Q&A. So that's your chance
Right,
to ask any questions that come up throughout the presentation or that you had before. So just remember to jot them down or enter them into the chat. And we look forward to having more of a conversation after this.
for sure. Okay, let's see here. Oh, okay, so we started out the 2025 season coming off of a 2024 season where we worked a lot on the Tom Ball
Yes.
Reserve, which we named the Longview Loop. It's in Great Barrington and Alford, and it has implications for a longer high road route at some point in the future. Tom Ball Ridge is one of the only ridges in the area in the Berkshires, I think, that did not have improved public access. So we were happy to be able to make some improvements to a trail network that was existing, based on old woods roads and private, unauthorized trails and access, and really kind of craft something curated and special out of what was kind of a hit or miss situation of trails, which honestly in Berkshire County and in a lot of places in New England is the case with any kind of
Hmm.
um, large acreage. I mean, there's such a history of use that, I'm sure you've all seen old stone walls out in the middle of the woods, old road corridors, cellar holes, things like that. So we're working within a living environment with a lot of, natural history, but also cultural history. So which is cool. And it means that, you know, we see a nice pile of flat rocks that are great for building. We're like, probably should leave those alone. As much as we need that rock right there, we're not going to touch it because it's part of an old stone wall or something like that. So we like to preserve those things in place for everyone. Um, so yeah, this is just a slide of a couple different aspects of the trail. Um, here's we'll get more into this, but there's an example of some bog bridging, and then here's our colleague Jennifer working on some early season decking. I think John was this, I want to say February or very early March.
Yeah, it was February to early March when there was
Yeah,
still snow on the ground.
right. So this
Yep.
is a scenario where we wouldn't want to do a lot of like digging into the ground with the ground still frosted and everything, but things like, decking a bridge or a boardwalk like this, um, good early season work before the ground thaws up too much. And here's a picture of John working a high line, setting in some. Can everyone see my cursor as I'm doing this? I'm not making anyone
I
sick.
can. I can. Yeah.
Okay, great. Um, yeah, working on a staircase right here that kind of loops around this boulder here. And this is a really cool feature of the trail that we're able to kind of put people right at the base of this kind of cliffy area with
Hmm.
a lot of ferns and boulders and things like that. So that's probably one of my favorite parts of the trail. Um, Move on to the next slide. Yeah, so like I said, um, we built some brand new trail and also improved a lot of woods roads, cleaned them up, got blowdowns out of the way, made things a little more clear for folks. We opened it in June, and it encompasses some switchbacks. This is what I was talking about with historic trails. This is a staircase that some of our trail crew built. Um, on some very precipitous, cliffy switchbacks that we're
Mhm.
pretty sure date back to one of the adjacent um, buildings in this area that was like a Gilded Age
Mhm.
mansion. And my supposition is that a lot of these like carriage road style trails were built in concordance with um, some of that development for people's recreation. Um, John?
Yeah, yeah, the um it's pretty cool. All the bits of like history and the natural stuff, the natural views on this trail. Like I said, the switchbacks, it's really impressive and also impressively steep on some points. And it's amazing to think about how, probably they got a crew of like 10, 20, 30 people out there with maybe like, mules and hand tools, and they were just going to town. But this trail has some really cool ecosystem and wildlife. Very cool bird spot. Lots of cool migratory warblers that go through there. Because it's a ridge, you see a lot of birds of prey. And like you said before, you get some pretty cool views of long view through the tree, or sorry, the long pond through the trees. And yeah, all around it's definitely was one of my more favorite trails to build. And I would have to say with Tyler that that section he was talking about in the last slide with the kind of the rock causeway along the ridge there, that was definitely one of my favorite parts to build. So
Speaking of stonework, we were supported by several Green Acres crews, both in 24 and 25,
Mhm.
and they brought a lot of hands and strong backs and knowledge about rustic stonework. So they helped us a lot on these switchbacks. Um, Over in this on this picture, you can kind of see a more close-up view of the highline rigging system that we use a lot. This is a braided wire rope that we attach to pulleys. There's usually a pulley in two different trees and with a span in the middle. Um, and that way, when you draw tension or pull length out of that wire rope, it will lift things with a great deal of mechanical advantage off the ground, and we can move them around fairly easily. So this rock is probably 2.5 feet long. Um, and it just allows us to kind of preserve ourselves and be a lot more efficient with how we exert ourselves. Um, oh, John,
Yeah,
any more on the stonework or
well, I was
that?
gonna say, one of the other benefits of using the Highline system is kind of twofold. One being that the because the switchback trail is built into the side of this ridge, all along the trail, it's all very steep. So it's actually rather dangerous to get rocks down or off the hill because if you let them go, they're just gonna roll down if there's anybody down there working. So we use the grip hoist a lot to lower them down, and then also to be able to pick them up. It also helped us reduce the damage on the off trail sections on, foliage or, other critters that might be there, that being able to, it also kind of reduced our footprint and impact on the surrounding
Right.
areas.
Because the
Yeah.
alternative is to roll them or drag them along the
Yeah.
ground, and you're
Hmm.
tearing up, that the leaf litter and that kind of organic bed of roots and everything like that.
Hmm.
Um, So the picture on the left here shows a really perennially wet section of trail that we had to do something with, and thankfully the wetland scientist that we worked with to permit some of the wetland crossings on this trail delineated this as non-jurisdictional, subject to flooding. So, because the way she explained it to me was because it doesn't have a defined outflow, it's basically considered by um, Wetland Protection Act to just be a big puddle, pretty much. It doesn't have some of those like key species that would designate it as a wetland. Um, so we were able to do kind of a more conventional boardwalk. You can see down here that we're burying these footers in the ground, and we staked them in with rebar to support this. I think it was a 70 or 75 foot boardwalk
Hmm. Yeah.
to achieve, something better than this solution or this, situation right here. Um, Yeah, and that turned out pretty well. The alternative, if it had been deemed a wetland, would be we either have to put the trail somewhere else, or in the past we've hired contractors to drive helical piles, which is kind of an order of magnitude more in terms of the technical aspect of, you have to bring in a machine to drive those piles to a certain torque setting. It's basically a giant ground screw that you screw into the
Yeah.
ground. And because it's a tube that's only about 2 inches wide as opposed to a big 6x6 or a series of 6x6s, um, you can achieve a crossing that doesn't is not considered infill. It's not considered damaging to a wetland environment. So a lot of times you see like,
Mhm.
if anyone's visited Parsons Marsh, that is a long boardwalk and it's all helical piles because it's in a wetland, and
Yeah.
that was the treatment that was necessary. Um, yeah, so here's a picture of the
Hmm.
finished boardwalk. I think I forget. It was mostly dry up until I think a spring rain
Yeah.
this spring in like May or something like that. And so I felt a great deal of relief and vindication when that actually filled up. And I was like, see, that it's there for a reason, everyone. It's not just a boardwalk over dry ground. So
Yeah.
here's a couple other shots of here's our trail crew member Lauren operating one of our very dear pieces of equipment called Canicom, lovingly nicknamed Candy,
Hmm.
by the trail crew last year. It has a hydraulic dump bed and tracks, and you can put about 900 pounds in it.
Yeah.
Soil, gravel. We built this cool lumber carrier, tools, everything. So,
Posts,
uh,
all sorts of stuff.
yeah, very
Yeah.
handy. John, we'll move it to the next slide, and you want to
Sure.
that one? I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, so another thing that we've been doing is working on improvements on other of our trails, and specifically the 3 Mile Hill Trail, because that will be a part of the new Great Barrington Community Connector Trail, which we're hoping to finish this spring, early summer. Um, in that section of trail, the 3 Mile Hill Trail, which is behind the CHP Health area there, and the clinic there in the and Fountain Pond State Forest or Park there. A lot of the crossings, whether they were like bridges or a lot of the bog bridging had rotted out and was just basically non-functional. And then even a lot of these kind of rustic bridges that were, I can't remember when they were built, if it was like 7, 10 years ago, something like that. Um, but they were definitely could use some improvements. So our crew was able to work together. We had a lot of help from volunteers, and we're able to put in some just really great sturdy bridges that are wider. There'll be a lot, safer to cross when it's icy and wet, and it just make it a little more accessible for more people.
Yeah. We actually I built this bridge with DCR and a couple other folks. I want to say in like 2020 or
Yeah.
2019, maybe the very
Mhm.
beginning of um maybe 2019, I think. And so it's not that old, and it wasn't rotted out by any means, but
Hmm.
this is a rustic log bridge that we just squared off the top of two hemlock logs, and so it's really bouncy. Doesn't give people a lot of confidence that when they're crossing it, especially in like wintertime or something like that.
Hmm.
And then also when you use logs like that and square off the top, I mean it's pretty rough on top, and you're exposing a lot of the grain and like the heartwood of the log usually, and so it rots pretty fast. Hemlock's not great for that to begin with, but especially in this kind of scenario.
Yeah, so there's pictures of more of the bridges that we worked on. I think we did 3 or 4 total bridges, in addition to quite a lot, many sections of bog bridging, thanks to the help of volunteers, as well as our awesome trail crew. The different aspects that, it kind of started out, we had to dig the footings for the the stringers or I should say the sills that the stringers that would span the gap we're going to sit on. Once we got those established, we would kind of build out the frame, and then from there we could do the decking, and then finally the guardrails. And it's a great process. We had a great crew, and they really took to it and did some great work, and I think we got some great results from it.
Here's a picture. This is what kind of what I was talking about of like, what is that? It looks like
Oh yeah.
a grassy or a shady pile of dirt or something like that. But what's kind of hard to see, but I'll try to explain is like the trail is here, and there's a lot of old um, like swales or water bars, if you want to call it that, on this trail that were no longer functional. So the idea is that this is the angle that or the direction that water is flowing down the trail. And what we're doing is restoring some of these water bars that will divert any water that's flowing down the trail off trail. Um, when you get water running down a trail, it picks up certain materials. The faster the water's moving, the larger size of the material that it can pick up. Um, and so eventually, you lose the tiny little bits first, silts and sands, and then you get a gully and eventually a rut, and then all of a sudden you're walking in a trough of rocks, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so this is a way, these wa water bars like this take maintenance. You have to, because the water comes down the trail and it's moving at a certain velocity, and asking the water to change direction slows it down. When it slows it down, it drops some of that sediment that is collected. So that sediment needs to be um, removed at some periodic basis. And if you don't do it for 50 years, you don't have a swale anymore. You much less time, but like, more like a 2 or 3 year
Mhm.
basis. But they'll totally be erased in a given, decade or so, to the point where they're not, can't even, you wouldn't even know they were there. So, uh, yeah. Um, Here's a slide of there's a lot of like, I've always called it like glory work, like out in the out in the wilderness building a stone staircase on the side of a mountain or something like that. But on stewardship and on trail crew, we also do some of the things that maybe you wouldn't write home about all the time. That includes dragging out um, equipment that's broken down, um, collecting trash, doing a lot of leaf blowing and weed whacking. This is Jackson
Jackson
Boardwalk.
Pond. Yep.
Yeah. Fixing signage. I mean, they're all very satisfying, but it's just good to remember that like that's a big part of what we do too. I mean, these are like kind of the unseen, it's you would only know about it if it wasn't right. And that's so we take care of that too.
Yeah, it's the stuff that, the crew talks about. Like, you remember that day when we, dragged the mower, or, this trash, not only was it pretty wretched, but also it had a very large spider in it, so one of our trail crew members wouldn't even get close to it. But we dealt with it. But it's, yeah, and you have signage that gets knocked down all the time. I think this was knocked down by a vehicle. We had another sign problem up in Hoosick Range just a month or so ago, where the sign got knocked down. The post did. We fixed the post, and then the sign broke and blew off, and we had to fix that. So yeah, all these things crop up, and we try to stay on top of them so that people have a good experience, and that most people don't see this stuff.
We took part in a chainsaw certification class this year, which was really exciting. We all got certified to run chainsaws. The guy here in Orange is named Peter Jensen. He's a pretty famous trail builder. He's built a lot of trails for BNRC over the years
Mhm.
and across the country, and he's a renowned trainer as well. So he came down and did a uh, trail trail maintenance oriented chainsaw class, which focuses on limbing and bucking and kind of solving access issues like you see in some of these pictures. Um, so yeah, I mean it can go from everywhere from pretty simple, like Lauren here cutting a tree or a piece of um, a dead tree that fell onto the trail. It's on the ground. It's one piece. Um, on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about kind of some of the uh, issues that we face when running chainsaws in the woods. Maybe John, you can take that one on.
Yep. Yeah, so we're trying to keep our, 60 miles roughly of trails open all the time. And because we have weather and we have snow and all these other things, things fall down and and like Tyler said, they can be really simple, like the picture on the left here with the tree across. I mean, it's a little elevated, but it's fairly straightforward. You have space to get your chainsaw bar, the part, the cutting part, cutting it without touching the ground. And then on the right here, you see a more complex. I believe this was at Steeple Top, and it was like 3 or 4 trees that had just fallen in this mass cluster. And it was very much, it's very much it was a puzzle of like, how do we need to figure out what tree we have to get down first? And when a tree is bent over, there's a lot of pressure and force, and that if you don't cut it the right way, you releases that tension too quickly, and it could throw your chainsaw, it could catch your saw in the wood, it could, all sorts of stuff could happen. So it takes a lot of deliberation and just planning to figure those things out. And there are other factors too, like if it's a newer tree that had leaves on it and it fell down, green wood, when you make your hinges to like cut things, you can trust that like if you make a hinge to release it slowly, the wood is fresh, it's new, it'll do what it's supposed to do. But if you're dealing with a dead ash tree, that wood's it's dry, it's been dead for a long time, even though it's been standing, and so you got to be more careful because you could be having make a plan with a certain cut, but because it's dead, the wood is not as strong, and it will break maybe before you expect it. So you got to plan for that and maybe wider cut wider and just give yourself more layroom and always being safety in mind, looking for overhead hazards. There's a whole analysis that you do when you get to a site to say, okay, this is where's the hazards, what's our objectives, where's the compression and the tension on these trees, how's that going to affect our cutting, and what's our plan. So those are some of the aspects, and the crew did a great job with their new chainsaw trainings. We were able to put them to work towards the end of the season and give them some experience as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what John's talking about with tension and compression is what we mean by when we say binds. So like,
Hmm.
gravity, even though the tree's on the ground, the gravity is still at play. So, and it's often hard to decipher where it is. And
Yeah.
you can, because if something is under tension, it might not look like it, but you have to look at like where did the tree come from, what's on top of it, what is it on top of, and then kind of dissect it, dissect the issue from there. I'm reminded of, wasn't there like a kids game back in like in the 90s where you had to like pull like pickup sticks. You had to like pull
Yes. Yeah.
sticks out one at a time without all of them kind of crashing in on
Hmm.
themselves. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit.
Or
Except
Jenga.
you're running a chainsaw and you're dealing with logs instead of little sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back to the Great Barrington Community Connector. I mean, we were looking at the Fountain Pond side with all those bridges. This is the Thomas and Palmer side. Um, this is another high road route that we're anticipating opening later this year. But last season we did a lot of work on the front end, um, including some more great stonework from the Green Agers. They came in and armored some of these. It's hard to tell from this picture, but like this is a low-lying. This is like a kind of a draw in the landscape where there's a kind of a wash drainage right here. So just putting a single track trail through that area there's a possibility of it kind of being soggy and being kind of an issue area. So they came in, did 4 or 5 of these really nice stone armored crossings. Um, you know, take a look at some of the trees and then look at the size of these rocks that they found. I don't know where and pulled them in because I mean this one's like 3 feet across or something like that. So they did a great
Hmm.
job.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, our crew used a mini excavator to rough out a trail tread, and then came in with hand tools behind the machine to smooth it out, compact it with a plate compactor. So this is nicely laid out by our high road manager D, who's an expert trail designer. Um, and yeah, we're looking forward to this one. It's going to be really fun and add a lot
Mhm.
to Thompson Palmer, which is already a great, multifaceted kind of destination with an accessible loop through the meadow, and then a couple like more rigorous hiking options. So that's really gonna be a good one. Um, yeah, this slide highlights some of the fun kind of in-house design work that we get to do in stewardship. Uh, our former colleague Josh built this really awesome red oak bench
Hmm.
this winter, last winter, um, with from a downed. I mean, I was on leave, John, so you can describe kind of what happened.
Yeah, so it was Josh had been looking for an oak tree for a while, and this was a blowdown that was on Stevens Glen, and it was kind of up over the trail, maybe 4 or 5 feet, and it had been there for, I want to say, maybe 4, 5, 6 years. Um, and we thought, well, we could take it down and we could probably harvest it too. So it took us a couple very cold, snowy winter mornings to go out there. And first we had to take the blowdown down, and then we cut out the section we needed, and then kind of harvested took out as much wood as we could because we knew we were going to have to carry this thing by hand, the quarter mile back up to the truck. And then from there we were able to bring it back to the workshop where Josh did most of the handwork on it, the sand, the planing. He made a jig to be able to take off even layers on the top, and then sanded it down, and then was drilling holes for pegs for the and so it was a cool process. It was a lot of fun. I got to take some of the scraps home for firewood, so that was fun. Um, but yeah, it was neat to see it come from just a large, like a 6, 7 foot long log to this beautiful bench. It was a very cool process.
Yep. We also do most of our in-house, well, we do most of our trail signage in-house. I mean, some things like roadside signs and things like that we get printed, but we enjoy the aesthetic of a routed
Hmm.
wooden sign on the trails. It's just kind of it blends with the environment more. So we're lucky to be able to have a shop where we can knock out these signs amongst other things. And here's another bench. Um,
We also make our own kiosks too.
make our own kiosks, yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
And then, yeah, late season of this year, we dug into some accessibility improvements. Um, this is the beginnings of a retaining wall at Old Mill Trail. Um, Old Mill Trail is an accessibly built trail. I think the accessible portion is 7/10 of a mile, I want to say. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep. Hmm.
This is closer to the end, but this is a section where the trail was just getting a little bit narrow. The minimum width for trail accessibility, according to the Forest Service, which are the guidelines that we use and that a lot of trail builders and maintainers use as kind of a benchmark, is 36 inches. So we were right at, especially where this tree is, we were right at and or below 36 inches, mostly because this bank was sloughing material onto the
Yeah.
trail. So we built this retaining wall to kind of just boundary that slope. Not that stuff isn't going to fall back onto the trail, but now we have like a bumper pretty much. Now it's easy to come in with a shovel every once in a while, and like if there's stuff that's kind of sloughed off, we have a hard stop of where to
Hmm.
like dig to pretty much. And I think that won't be that frequent of a thing. But this is yeah, like I said, narrow area, but it has to be at least 36 to for us to be able to advertise as an accessible trail. Um, and it's what folks expect. So it's kind of the onus is on us to do
Yeah.
everything we can to make sure that we're living up to um, those standards. Um, this is a bridge, the big bridge at Thompson Palmer that for a long time had free floating planks on the bridge, and Josh and the crew uh, removed the old planks and installed nice, fresh, uh, pressure treated decking in one day, I think, right?
Yeah, I believe it was one day. I was out on paternity leave myself, but
Yeah.
yeah, I do
So
believe.
that was quite an achievement.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So always looking for to solve an issue before it becomes um, something like this scale, but we're also doing a lot of kind of retrofitting all the time. I mean, we have an eye towards new trails and new opportunities, and that's always a great thing. But um, we also have an eye towards long-term sustainability and maintenance to make sure that, because trails make an impact, right, on the landscape, and
Mhm.
we try to go lightly as possible, but there is an impact. So it's important for us to, um, as much as possible, make sure that the impact that we are making is minimal and it's thoughtful and is something that we can take care of practically because it's kind of our responsibility. We've made the impact, so it's not time to just kind of walk away from it and on to the next thing ever. So. Um, Yeah, moving forward with this season and into seasons coming, we're looking to add more trails that are built to those accessibility standards. Um, Constitution Hill is a property that is in Lanesboro. It's a great location. It's kind of a place of a part of the county where BNRC doesn't have a huge um, footprint. Um, Constitution Hill has a lot of great assets, a lot of implications for the high road again, and linking to other features in town. Um, and then, yeah, continuing to kind of build our internal in-house capacity for doing this kind of work, and also, continuing to work with our awesome volunteers
Mhm.
who are like our eyes and ears out on the trails, letting us know about
Yeah.
issues, taking care of a lot of maintenance tasks themselves, and really being great ambassadors for trails in general and BNRC. So it's a pleasure and a privilege to work with them. What do you have? Any other thoughts, John?
Um, I mean, no, like you said, I mean, we have a lot planned for this year. A lot of improved trailheads. We're looking at some new parking lots, new kiosks. Hope to replace some fencing at a couple properties. So there's a lot in the works for especially for the spring and summer. So there'll be, we're looking to have probably plenty of volunteer opportunities, as well as just going to be seeing a lot of great changes on across our reserves.
Absolutely, well said. So yeah, that's what we have prepared. I'm happy to answer questions or try to answer
Yeah.
questions or talk shop to anybody that has nerdy nuts and bolts trails questions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Tyler and John. Very impressive. I learned a lot, even though I work for BNRC. There's always more to learn about what goes on behind the scenes. And something you didn't mention, but I was thinking about, and I'm sure you felt, was how hot it was last season. Like add that to the list of the less glorious parts of the job, but
Yeah.
just amazing that you guys are working out
Hot
there.
and dry. I mean,
Oh
we
yeah.
were
Yeah.
working on the Thompson Palmer section of the Great Barrington Community Connector, and I was digging with the excavator, like, removing that top sod layer and getting down to, not only creating a good flat bench, but also removing that top organic layer. And it was like dust underneath it. And you can't, we couldn't compact for
Yeah.
a long
Right.
time. We had to like leave and
Mhm.
come back like in the fall to compact everything.
Mhm.
I
So
remember
yeah.
that. Yeah. Amazing. Well, so we can move on if you want to go to the next slide, Tyler, just to,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Q&A. We did get some questions beforehand, so I'm going to start with those, and it looks like one question came into the chat already, and I encourage folks to enter anything that they can think of into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. You can enter it there or you can put it in the chat. Whatever is clever. So our first question from Natalie. Natalie would like you to discuss how physically demanding the trail crew seasonal job is. And if someone were to be trail crew, what would a quote difficult or heavy duty type of day look like?
I don't, I bet John and I both have opinions on this. My feeling is, I've worked with a lot of different crews. I think, you know, people from all walks of life and all body types are very successful trail professionals, and it comes down to your mindset.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those jobs or one of those kind of tasks where you really have to love what you do. I mean, that can be said for a lot of things, but it's it's environmentally not always ideal, like weather-wise. Um, you're either hot and sweaty and getting bit by mosquitoes and black flies, or you're, end of the season, your fingers are starting to go numb, and all things in between. So yeah, I think um, having a mindset, having a collaborative and supportive team, all make those things easier. That being said, it's a physically demanding job, but we strive on our crew and on all the successful crews that I've been part of to have people um, perform perform with fervor and deliberateness without overextending themselves. Those are the people that are effective and efficient, not the people that can, you know, throw a 10-foot log up over their head. It looks impressive, but those people don't last.
Yeah.
Um, and if they do, no one wants to work with them. So it's in my experience, it's been the people that love working with others and are open and want to have a good time that are the most effective people out there on the trails. Um, proper body mechanics is huge. Um, no one can do the job just without any kind of tools or by themselves. So like when we move rocks, one of the tools we use a lot is a rock bar. It's literally just a long crowbar, like a 5 foot long heavy steel bar with a chisel tip or a point on the end. It's just a lever, and you get that 1 inch of tip of the bar underneath the rock, and you have 55 inches of handle on the other side of it. That means you're gonna increase your lift capacity by 55 times. You have 1 inch under your load and 55 inches as a lever. I mean, an 8-year-old could lift a 200-pound rock with the
Mhm.
right placement of that rock bar and some knowledge of physics. Not that we don't employ 8-year-olds, uh, but my point is that it's about knowledge, it's about proper tool uh, use and choosing the right tool for the right job, and having a general awareness of gravity and physics. Um, yeah. That being said, um, we hike a lot, we carry tools, and so um, you know, bring enough water in
Yeah.
all seasons, not just when it's hot out.
Yeah.
John, like I said, I'm sure you have thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot of the really good important stuff. Yeah, we have yeah, I mean there's hot days, there's really wet rainy days or sometimes wet rainy weeks where, we've had summers and seasons where it'll just be your boots and your backpack have been wet for 4 or 5 days but the stuff work we're doing is outdoors and like Tyler said, your mental attitude I think is one of the most important things. You don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, to do trail work. We've had some great trail crew members who, they use their brains, they work together as a team. They had a great sense of humor. That's also a really important one. When you can joke when you're, being pelted with rain or being assaulted by mosquitoes or, getting, showered by rock shrapnel as you're breaking rocks for crush. Having that, that good sense of humor and that team spirit has really helped. And last season we had some really tough conditions. And we had a great crew that laughed a lot and made a lot of jokes, and it made it a lot easier. Um, and yes, like it is very important how you do things. We've had crews in the past. And not too many. I think maybe only one or two that were like gung ho, gusto, we're gonna knock this out, and weren't very sustainable. And so ever since then, the last 4 or 5 years, we've always said, we yes, we're here to do our best to push ourselves, but we need to be sustainable. We need something that we could do. We can set this pace. We can work this way all summer long, all spring long, all fall long, and um and not overexert ourselves and ask for help and do things with other people and work together. And it's far more efficient when you're working together. Maybe you're not rolling a 150, 200 pound rock by yourself, but two of you are, and that's only 75 pounds for you instead of, that. So there's a lot of really good ways that we try to teach the crew and that they figure out for themselves of how they can get the work done in the face of some challenges, and they always have good attitudes about it, and lots of jokes and stories after. So
Awesome. Thank you both. So, along a similar line, I think we have a question or two questions from Yona. Um, and they say, as someone who is early in the trail maintenance career, do you have any suggestions for local trainings, job opportunities to continue to gain more knowledge, especially to get more hands-on experience with rock work? And also, if you have any suggestions on ways to access chainsaw certification courses that are more financially accessible.
Hmm. I'm trying to think of training options for rock work, and the first thing that comes to mind is the last few years. I know that the Mass Trails conference isn't every year, but the last couple cycles they've done stonework workshops at like
yeah.
Mount Wachusett or something like that. So that
Hmm.
might be something to look out for.
Hmm.
Um, Keep an eye towards volunteer work days, where they advertise like, hey, we're gonna do XYZ, and then you can, if it's something piques your interest. Um, AMC is a good one. They do a lot of those are pretty, I mean, you get what you pay for, but they're not inexpensive courses. But it's a lot of good, I mean, tons of knowledge there. I don't know, John, what do you think?
Well, as along the lines with the AMC, they do have it's actually a training I'm interested in. It's called the Trail Skills College. And in the spring, they have one up in Gorham, New Hampshire at Camp Dodge. It's their training center up there. And in the fall, they have it at, I believe it's Nobleview, is it? In Russell, um, which is a lot more local for those in the Berkshires. And it's like a 3 to 4 day event. And they have different training courses you can take on all different subjects, chainsaw, using axes, rock work, rigging for 3 or 4 days. And I don't think there's like a minimum like level of like it's pretty basic courses. They're trying to equip you to come from like close to zero to and equip you to go up from there. And you just need to bring, PPE protection and stuff like that. And like Tyler said, those aren't inexpensive, but they're great opportunities as far as like practical hands-on stuff. And as far as employment, I mean, keeping your eyes and ears open. I mean, we here at BNRC, we hire trail crew every year. We're in the process now. Organizations like Greenagers, sometimes the trustees and DCR have opportunities. So those are all organizations that you can kind of keep your eyes on that might have something that is more trail oriented or rock work oriented. And then, yeah, I guess you have the Professional Trail Builders Association, and they have conferences and stuff, but those are not cheap at all. They're very expensive. So they're kind of you need to have a lot of money and a lot of interest. But yeah, I think like some of the things Tyler said, were good places to start and volunteering opportunities. And yeah, Mass Trails also offers some courses, and I think they're having a course this year in 2026, and they do it like bi-yearly, every other year basis.
I started out in my trails profession as a AmeriCorps member, like a lot of
Hmm.
people do.
Yeah.
Um, that and seasonal work. So it's kind of, some people love seasonal work. It's not for everybody. So a lot of people do it for a while and then they transition out, hopefully. So most of the on the ground, like trail crew jobs out there, I would say are seasonal. Um, but if you want to get into it, um, that's a good way to go. I mean, either like state conservation corps, Maine Conservation Corps. I worked there. I worked at California Conservation Corps in Utah, Camp Conservation Corps. I mean, Montana, a lot of different states. Um, you know, the core program is great for a lot of things. It has had a problem with equity in the past. It doesn't pay very well, so not everyone, it's not accessible to everybody, unfortunately. I know it's gotten better. Um, in recent years, SCA was making a big push to actually pay people a living wage so that, people from that didn't have uh, a lot of support to give themselves an experience like that and get a foot in the door can actually afford to pay their bills and work on a trail crew, which is always nice. Yeah, I worked for the National Park Service, seasonally again, but that's a little bit more, that's definitely like a living wage. A lot of time housing is offered, for a nominal amount. Um, so those are all good places to look.
Yeah.
Thank you for those very thorough answers. I hope that helped, Yona. So let's see. Next, we have a whole bunch of questions from Marty. Marty is interested in, what is it? Sorry. Okay. Marty is interested in making steps up a relatively steep grade in the back of his property in Ashfield. And he's wondering what his material options of like wood versus stone, pros and cons. Um, if he could make wood steps made from purchase wood or from trees that have naturally fallen down in the area. Um, and then if made with flat stone, what size stone would you recommend in terms of the thickness, width of steps, and depth? We'll start with those. There are
Okay,
more.
great.
Uh,
Tons of options. Um, the one that I would not probably recommend would be to use like downed wood. I mean, you can do it, but it's kind of depending on the wood species and how long it's been dead, or even how long it's been down. You might go through that whole process and then find that it kind of falls apart in a very short period of time. There are some wood species that are excellent for ground contact or trail structures. We use black locust a lot because it has great rot resistance. It's really tough wood. It's really heavy, but it's also somewhat abundant depending on where you're at. It can be expensive if you get it milled, but if you have a neighbor with a patch of it that, it kind of grow, it's kind of like one of those like fast growing species. Um, it would be a challenge to, I don't know, like if you had rounds like that were sizable, you could cut them in half and get a tread that way and like build it yourself like a timber staircase. That would be kind of cool. Um, I think the first step in the process for any kind of staircase is take measurements. What's your rise over your run? Um, you know, the grade of your slope is one thing, but you also want to measure, how high up are you going to go over what distance? So you might be going, you might have 5 feet to achieve and over, 20 feet or something like that. But if you have 5 feet to achieve over 8 feet, that's a pretty steep staircase. I mean, you might have to go build into the side of the hill and do like a zigzag kind of thing. The spec on, typically and for trail structure, your a step height will be 6 to 8 inches. That's kind of the standard. If it's on your property, you could have 12-inch steps if you want, and you could get yourself a good workout going up and down those steps. Over 8 inches, it starts to be like kind of bomber, like big steps that are not super comfortable for most folks. So, like I said, if you're trying to achieve a rise of 5 feet, um, 6-inch steps, that's uh, 10 steps overall. And then if you're using stone, um, there's a couple different ways that people set stone steps. There's a set behind method, which you think of like, you have a step here, and then you set your next step behind it and below the grade of the top of the bottom step. That way, the second step is locked behind that first step. Um, I would call that set behind, and then you could also do like a set on top where you slab lay them. That gets a little trickier because you don't have that step's not locked behind anything. You can achieve that with like side rocks, or just the heft
Mm.
of the step. I mean, like, this isn't going to get walked on by thousands of people probably. So you can probably pretty effectively achieve a set on top. That way you're making full use of the entire width, um, entire depth, I should say, of the step. Whereas with the step behind, if you wanted a 6-inch step, you'd need like a 7 or an 8-inch thick slab, to have some of that thickness sit behind the step in front of it. Um, that's probably the best. I mean, that's probably the most durable, I would say, long term. Um, but yeah, tons of options. Um, I would say, especially with stone, you really want to shy away from anything that's, I would say, less than, I don't know, 100 pounds, probably, just so that those pieces can support themselves. You start to get into like, it's hard to get a wobble out of a stone that's just like is like a cobble sized thing, especially if you're like not going to use mortar or something like that. Um, Stones that are too small, that can't
Mhm.
kind of sit and kind of be have the benefit of their own mass. Just they just don't. They're not ideal for building anything out of. I mean, walls or things like that where there's a bunch of them stacked on top of each other was one thing, but a staircase that you're going to step on each, take a tread and step on each step. You want something pretty hefty.
That was pretty comprehensive, Tyler. I guess the only thing I'd say is that, that the pros and cons of, wood and stone is wood is usually easier to access, easier to work with. You can kind of cut it up pretty easy and to spec. But the maintenance on it is higher and you're going to be replacing it pretty, even with, a hardwood like black locust, 20, 25, 30 years. With other woods, like when you're dealing with soft, like if you're just harvest hemlock on your property, that might be only 4 or 5, maybe 7 years tops. Whereas stone, if you do it right and do it solid, I mean, stone structures can last for up to 100 years if you build them right. So stone's always my preference. I mean, it's easy when you have the expertise and you've been doing it a lot. It's a little harder when you're getting into it. But yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to both. A stone staircase just is so cool because you can build it and it looks like it's been there forever, even though you just built it like a week ago, and then it just continues to look like that. So it's pretty neat.
Get
Thank you
some
both
help
for
with
your.
that staircase. Don't build it yourself.
Yeah, yeah, good tip.
Have someone to lift those stones off your fingers when you get them caught.
Mm, absolutely. Thank you both for your expertise. I guess we can go through a few more questions that he has that you didn't answer yet. Can you talk a little bit about ground prep for stairs? Can you use the existing material, or do you have to get rid of the topsoil or carry in some gravel? Um, yeah.
Yeah, John, you want to take this one? We actually both sat in on a webinar,
Oh yeah.
from a colleague of ours, out in the Midwest who's um, is an expert with trails, with stone built features. So some fresh.
Yeah, so like prep sites, especially with like stonework, but anything where you're digging in with stairs, you do want to remove that top layer of the organic material because it doesn't compress well. It gets when it gets wet, it gets all muddy. So you want to remove that top layer till you get to really good mineral soil. Certain soils that have like this really like golden brown sheen, trail builders call it like gold, like trail gold, because it compacts really nice. And there's different techniques. Often, you with a staircase, if you're doing stonework, you'll set a base stone, and you could set it if you have good soil. You could just set it on soil, but another great way is to actually to lay down to dig out the area and lay down just a layer of crushed stone. So you have like this, you know, 2 to 3 inch or however thick layer of rocks that it's on top of, that they're all flat, leveled out, and you stick your rock on top of that, and then you're able to crush around it with other rocks, putting in pressure, or your side stones, and that gives you a good foundation. And you always also with a stone staircase, you want to set in a base stone, which is basically you're setting in your first step, but your first step is going to be like almost basically at ground level. So you're burying almost the whole thing underground. So if and that goes with the technique of the set behind stone staircases. And with that way, you have that base stone. Your first step that actually rises 6 to 8 inches will be behind that. Because if you don't do that, what happens is your rocks might stay in place, but over time, the soil in front of your first step is going to wear away until your step gets over time is going to get deeper and taller until if it's 10, 11 inches, if you're on a public trail, if you get over 8 inches, people start not really wanting to use your staircase because it's uncomfortable. So they subconsciously begin going around the staircase that you spent, 2 or 3 weeks on and, blood, sweat, and tears, all because of you didn't, set that rock. And with the wood staircases as well, you want to make sure you clear off that duff layer. Make sure you have either like a solid soil base or solid, like crushed rock to lay it on. And then when you set your steps, then you have your side stones to kind of cement it in on either side. And you all want them contacting each other. Kind of the rule of thumb is at least two good points of contact for any rock touching each other. If you can get three or four, that's awesome. But you at least two if you can help it. If it's a really big rock, then maybe like one point of contact's okay. If it's like 200 pounds, it's not going anywhere. But yeah, that's definitely very important to remove that organic layer, and to start at the base with your base stone and to prepare the site accordingly. I don't know if I missed anything, Tyler.
Sounds exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, the last question from Marty is about water bar construction. Just can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, for sure. You could do water bars just with soil and like dig like a big swale. Um, you think of like a teardrop shape where the tip of the teardrop is your outflow. So if you have a trail that's coming down, um, though that style works best at like a pretty shallow grade. Like if it's really steep, um, it's harder to dig in a swale just because basically a water bar is essentially a manufactured grade reversal. You're having your trail's coming down one way and all of a sudden the trail's doing this for a very short period of time. But if your trail's really, really steep and all of a sudden you go up, now you're downhill of the trail of that feature is super steep. So a lot of times you'll see a couple steps leading up to a rock water bar to achieve that kind of that grade, gain some grade, and that way you can have that reversal um, be effective and it also have it be more supported. But I would say up to 10% grade on a trail, you could get away with just a gully basically at a 45-degree angle to the direction of the trail, so that the water you don't want the water to slow down too much, like I was talking about before with slowing down water drops sediments and fills up your water bar. But if it's much more than if it's like a 60 degree turn or 60 degrees to the direction of the trail, then it's starting to get pretty long and go like along the trail instead of across it. So 45 is kind of the rule of thumb. On a water bar. You can build them out of stone. You can lay a good log in, but you always want to back it up with soil and bury it pretty good so that it's stable in there and
Mhm.
it's uh, easy to walk over. That's another kind of pitfall of like poorly thought out trail features is water bars that stick up too high, or that aren't pleasant or visually appealing to look at are good. People are going to go around them, and then eventually the water is too. Um, so yeah, you want it to be like a short step over if you have to step over it at all. Ideally, you would ramp up to the water bar, then it would kind of do one of these little swoops, and you'd continue going up. That way, you wouldn't really even perceive that you're stepping up and over something.
Mhm.
Um, we have a lot of older water bars that are just kind of like toothed in rocks. Um, and that works for the water, but no one wants to hop over those things. It's just not, it's not a good part of not a good feature.
That's covered it, Tyler.
Great. Well, we're pretty much to the end of our time together tonight. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I just want to. Oh, we have Natalie who raised her hand. We'll unmute her. Or I think you could unmute yourself, Natalie. Go ahead.
Hi. I still don't know if my video
Hi.
is working, but you can hear me, right?
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do. And like, I do more of these happen because I think it's really cool to see like a behind the scenes look because like I love the newsletter and I love seeing the pictures, but having you guys explain things and really like get into the nitty gritty of it's so cool. And honestly, by the way, it is my dream job to be trail crew for you guys. I've just been
Mhm.
recovering from a tick disease. So I don't know if this season is my season for it yet, but Charlotte, thank you so much for asking my question before. Even when you guys posted those pictures of the non-glory times,
Mm.
that seems glorious to me. Like I love that. And just hearing you guys talk about it, like, there's a select few people out there that just get the vibes from this, that get goosebumps talking about nature preserves and trees and rocks and all this. And like hearing you guys speak about the projects you're doing and about the work, it's so cool. And I thank you so much because if not this year, I have to be involved with you guys down the road. So thank you. I needed to express that. So thank you.
Aw.
Well, thank
Natalie?
you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Natalie. I'm glad that we got to hear your voice, or that we got to hear from the participants tonight.
Right on.
And yeah, we would absolutely love to have you involved. And I really appreciate the feedback, that you enjoy hearing this information and want more of it. And yeah, hopefully we'll continue to do these in years to come.
Thank you.
Yeah, and good luck on your recovery journey. Um, yeah, I think that's it. We'll follow up with the recording and some resources. And if any other questions come up for folks in the next few days as you kind of let this marinate, please feel free to email me. You have my email. And thank you so much and have a great evening, everyone. Thank you, Tyler and John.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks again.
Bye.